Please welcome Chief Operating Officer Aman, Roland Fasel, in discussion with Skift X Executive Editor Greg Oates.
Good afternoon. So luxury, it's a bit of a wild west these days in terms of what luxury means and how brands are adapting to new consumer psychographics. For the last 10 years, everyone's been saying that luxury is evolving from expensive things to exclusive experiences. And they're saying that luxury now means so many different things to different people because of emerging source markets, younger demand, all different kinds of factors. So we want to kind of move beyond those cliches. We've been working with ILTM and Cannes and Virtuoso with Matthew Upchurch and his team just recently to try and understand the future of luxury. So what better brand could we possibly learn from than Aman Resorts? And we have Roland here today to talk to us about where luxury is going and how you're stewarding that experience into the future. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
So when you look at some of the iconic luxury brands in the travel space, I can kind of identify them. I've been to them. We have one of the top luxury brands just downstairs. But at the same time, I'm not sure I can discern the differences from one to the next.
Okay.
With Aman, there is this mystique. And maybe part of that is because there are a lot of them in very remote destinations. The price point is among the highest, if not the highest in the industry, like in Amangiri in Utah, where it's $1,900 a night. So there's this mystique. It's a bit of a known unknown. Mm-hmm. So just for everyone here who hasn't been to a party, could you talk a little bit about the brand pillars and where that mystique comes from?
Obviously, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. The Aman name obviously stands for peace. We have been since 1988 on a journey and have currently in 31 destinations in 20 countries. It really started to, and it's a true story, that there was a piece of residential villas were supposed to be built, and somebody decided that we should have a hotel with it. And the ethos around was always to create hotels which are representing what's now commonly known a home away from home. Mm-hmm. And this is still part of our ethos. We really have created peaceful getaways where we give you access to the transformational experiences to change mind, body, and spirit. I think I have never claimed it, but I'm the industry leader around the understated, elegant architectural environment where we are delivering a proposition which is beyond the common known of luxury and really get you into a space on uncomplicated serenity. Our brand proposition is, our propositions are quite simple, correct? I mean, we're highly experiential and we have done this for 30 years. Yeah. Again, should we have claimed it more? Yes, but I guess that's what's add to the mystique. Mm-hmm. We are non-institutional. Every hotel has his own little space, his own little way of doing business, as long as they are ingrained in the context, in the environment they are operating, that they are fully transparent and involved in the heritage, the culture of the locations we operate in. We are highly personalized, highly customized. Mm-hmm. So every experience you will have will be different and individualized to you. And we have obviously a commitment that this still is like receiving a friend to your home, the hotels. It's high touch. I have huge labor ratios to customers' rooms, and we have been very, very truthful for that for the last 30 years.
Okay. I want to come back to some of those things you said. Some of those are very, very interesting. Some I've heard from some of the other brands, but especially this holistic transformation of mind, body, and spirit. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that a little bit. Just look at the consumer, just anecdotally or in your opinion, how is the luxury mindset evolving today?
Yeah, and in my case, it's mostly anecdotal.
Good.
Then that's one of the things with which we don't have some of the measurement tools and the measurable vehicles, which is a little bit, again, adding into the mystique. But I think, again, what's happening with travel and in my space, the target customer being younger, multi-generational, healthier, more active, more adventure-driven. The level of curiosity today, as I said, with the younger guests is the same than with the baby boomers. That's what you need if you want to go to an Aman. But I'm delivering against that perpetually and innovate all the time in order to cater to all these new trends around the target customer we're dealing with.
Okay, so we've sort of introduced at this conference the era of perma-anxiety. This sort of constant state of internal disruption based on the increasing regularity of all kinds of disruptions.
Yeah.
Political, terror, climate, economic, what have you. Is that impacting how customers are booking luxury product today, and your brand in particular, do you think?
Well, actually, it's a very interesting statement. And obviously, for me as a brand, I would say, if that is a reality, my brand is the most relevant brand today in the world, then my brand says peace, correct? Mm-hmm. My brand in Sanskrit means peace, and therefore we have always been known to deliver small pieces of paradise to the traveler out there. And we are, with how we build these hotels and the serenity we deliver, has spaces and even programs, and we talk about this in a few minutes as well, and programs around the world which really will take you off that perpetual rat race and that perpetual anxiety, then that's what we stand for. I mean, my brand stands for peace. So if you have these anxieties, there's 30 hotels which are more than happy to get you off that race.
Okay. So I want to go back to that identifier of the brand standing for the holistic transformation of mind, body, and spirit. And it seems with all this disruption that there's more demand for that because that's something I can control. That's something I can potentially control for myself. That's something I can potentially control for my family. And this idea of holistic wellness, obviously wellness has been a huge trend in luxury forever. But you look at the Global Wellness Summit this year, they said the #1 signature trend is mental wellness and introducing mental wellness into a more holistic delivery. When we did the research for ILTM, #1 shift in demand is for more wellness experiences, and you're seeing brands adapt to that. Are you seeing, I don't know if you can provide any examples, but are you seeing that demand too, where people now have always come to you, but are you delivering anything new or expanded to answer that demand for a more holistic delivery?
Yeah, I mean, there's two pieces or two answers to it. First, we've always been delivering access. I've always delivered experiences and therefore memories which became part of the cultural and social currency of the people who left. And that's where, we've never done advertisement. Everything we have today is word to mouth. And with those memories, obviously, and access as an example, I mean, there's no operator in the world who can deliver the access I have to the be going into Bora Bora or Angkor Wat or a little side door bringing you into the Summer Palace in Beijing, coupled with the experiences we deliver. I mean, we have Pursuit of Happiness seminars in Bhutan, and we have always had them for years. We have detox seminars in Amankila. We have all kinds of those kind of wellness-driven programs. We've had them for years before it became a trend. Now, we do and have developed our own not sub-brand, but our own programs around what we call wellness immersion, where I now brought together some of the most incredible specialists in their respective field, from yoga to Pilates to nutrition to spirituality, and we have access in the different hotels to those specialists. But just as an example, we'll open a new hotel in Shanghai where we dedicated 2,800 square meters to a wellness immersion wellness center, embracing all these parts of the trend in new conversation. It's just part of how I do business in order to attract more of that particular need and demand of the new customer who is looking for that.
So, and I bring this up with a little trepidation because there's this trend, transformational travel. In February, Vogue came out, said it was the #1 trend of the year. Not that we rely on that, but you know, there was a conversation that was starting to happen, and I started talking to more people. But what we found is that there are brands that are jumping on this authentically, as diverse as Singapore and Travel Portland in the destination space. Hotels, some smaller independents. I haven't seen any brands really jump on that. Maybe when there's some examples, but not so much. The reason I question is because it's obviously really murky. So what we're trying to understand, is it a true trend? So when we did our research for ILTM, one, we asked, is this important to you? And over 50% of the respondents, all luxury travelers, 1,500 said yes, it was. 7 or 10 said it was important. But then we wanted to see the shift. And we found out that over 50% said it's more important to them now than it was 3 to 5 years ago, because we really wanted to prove that delta. Do you see it now? You've always been offering it, but do you see it as an overarching industry trend?
No, I think it's genuine a trend moving forward. I think it becomes part of how we want to be. And I think clearly, not just a trend. I mean, people want to be healthy. People want to get in through the experiences or the context, or the resorts they visit, experience things which get them more engaged into the family, get them engaged into, maybe some charity work. But it has a transformational effect on hopefully going back to reality. I think it's a genuine way of people on how people want to live.
And the way it's explained to us as we talk with different brands is sort of this shift from, it's not about where you go or even what you do, it's who you can be. So there's something there. There's something powerful there.
But listen, I mean, ultimately, I've been doing this for 30 years. So for me, it's not a trend. So therefore, for me, it's more how do I keep this fresh, and how do I innovate, and how do I anticipate the next target customer wanting to travel to an Aman, and how we cater to those components. So I'm a much more proactive state of trying to stay at the front, be a leader on all these aspects we are talking about, but also something which we haven't done is to claim it.
Okay.
Which we haven't done. Then if we would have claimed this kind of conversations, or the things you think is a trend today, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, there would be no question who is doing this and have been doing it, and where and which brand has the pillars to deliver against the transformational experiences you're referring to. Then, it takes a few components, not on one day sitting at a desk saying, now I want to move from X to transformational experiences. We have built hotels around locations where you can do this, where you have space and the generosity of the space, where you have specialists who can really get you to experience a location which is setting you and engage with you to become more transparent.
I love that generosity of space.
Yeah.
The only Aman I've been to is in Providenciales. And
nice.
You have all of the resorts along Provo Beach there. And then it's a bit of a trek to get to yours, but once you get there, you're in another world. But what's so interesting for me, as someone who looks at design a lot, it's almost like the hotel or the resort gets out of the way. It's the land, and it's sort of blended into the environment, and you feel connected to the environment. And it's that generosity of space, which I think is one identifier. When we think about Aman and conversations before this, with Lena in Jordan, you always envision the brand as this just huge, expansive, peaceful space. But you've had new ownership now, and that was sort of solidified about 1.5 years ago. And the new ownership is wanting to move into the urban more so, and to expand the brand. Tokyo is open, Shanghai opens later this year. How do you translate that generosity of space and that holistic, transformative environment into an urban context? What are the challenges there?
Well, I think we very defined around the pillars or the proposition, around location, about the service proposition. So these pillars have been established over the years. They may not always been 100% articulated, but we have created this over the last 10, 12 months, a very clear set of those brand pillars. And those brand pillars you can translate this into a vertical environment. If you look at Tokyo, and we talk about the generosity of the space. And yes, you need to have the right developer who wants to do this with you, but ultimately you have the same kind of peace and quiet. You have a generosity of the space. We brought in the wellness piece in Tokyo is absolutely sensational, but you need to be able to find a partner who is willing to do this with you. But the pillars I have in the brand of Aman, be it in a resort, I can bring this into the city as well, where I can be the custodian to bring you into that city, where I am the brand who gives you the experiences nobody else would have in that city. Of course, the business mix will change a little bit. One is 100% leisure with 90% leisure. In the city, most likely you have a little bit more corporate. But ultimately, the aura and the ethos of welcoming people to your home, it doesn't make a difference if you're in a vertical thing or if you're in a resort.
But the key is finding a developer that will make available that huge pool space leading to Vision Mount Fuji, right, where another developer will want to stick in 20 extra rooms there.
Yeah.
So that's key is those partnerships.
I think that's key, yeah.
That will agree to do that and see the value proposition of doing that over the long term.
Absolutely.
But these are small properties, right? Tokyo 50, 60?
No, Tokyo have 84.
Okay, Shanghai is like 50.
Yeah, 55.
And then the new one in Kyoto is even smaller.
Yeah,
right?
35, 40.
So you're still very intimate.
Yeah, very small and intimate property. So you won't lose that piece at all.
Okay, so moving on a little bit, when you think of some of these luxury brands, and I think in all fairness, these really iconic luxury brands have come a long way in becoming less stuffy and less formal, more experiential. I think everyone's doing a pretty good job with that. But you have someone or a group called the Aman junkies, which I had no idea until we started looking at this. Could you talk about what that is? And just the idea that you can create a community of followers who've never experienced the brand, because a lot of these Aman junkies have never been.
So you have to stay more, then you get the T-shirt.
Yeah. Okay.
They actually have T-shirt. It's actually quite a good story. They do get the T-shirt. But Aman Junkie is actually a consumer advocate group created by them. So they are a group of guests who have created that community and labeled themselves Aman Junkie. And the only really thing who brings them together is the passion and their engagement to the Aman brand.
How many of these junkies are around?
Well, we have about 120,000 I'm talking to. Yeah. And don't forget, I have 130,000 on Instagram following me who haven't been to an Aman, which is even better.
So how do you create that energy around the brand? Like, what do you attribute that to?
Well, we have been 30 years on the journey. And I think if you are experiencing an Aman and you get us being the custodian to get you into those destinations, and you get your access and you create those memories, and it becomes truly part of your social currency. There is an incredible engagement when you get to those properties which will never leave you. And trust me, coming from a different brand, to understand it is to have to experience it. And I get that the Aman junkies and the passion around that brand exists.
Okay. And you also have a growing younger audience, which I was a little bit surprised to see the ratio of millennials in your mix, or 18 to 35, say, and just the ratio of spend, too, compared to older generations. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I can. I mean, we have about 20%, in 2016, I had 20% between 18 and 35-year-old guests in our hotels, which has now raised to about 28. I'm potentially could be about 30% of my business is 18 to 35-year-old guests, particularly in the US properties and the Caribbean properties as well. Then the other, which is phenomenal, 45% of the people visiting my website are between 18 and 35, and 58% of my revenues created through the web is from the 18 to 35-year-old group. Now, but I mean, as I said, I've never gotten really bogged down by the difference in my context between millennials, baby boomers, and generational. I think it's more about a bond of wanting and having incredible pleasure to travel. I think it's all, and it's regardless if you're a baby boomer or if you're a millennial, you have to have that. You have to have a curiosity to wanting to go to Bali and Amankila and experience this. And therefore, the generational play, yes, and we are catering to different restaurant product, to the, more activity. You can obviously do the kite surfing, whatever you want. But ultimately, you need to have the same curiosity, wanting to travel and visit Aman and experiencing those authentic experiences and being and loving the wanderlust in order to go to an Aman. So I don't see that much of a discrepancy between the two.
And you talked about that Pathfinder. So the development pipeline is pretty robust. I think you said 11 properties are under consideration, but only 3 or 4 of those are urban. There's still that push into the resort because you said you wanted to maintain that Pathfinder philosophy. Is that?
Yeah, very, very much. It's one of our values, and we have a very clear set of values which is obviously nurturing a Pathfinder spirit. And ultimately, we will have 4, 5, maybe 6 city and urban Amans as we move forward. And I would like to have about 45 to 48 Amans in the world by 2025. So it's never going to be a massive company. We will always protect the mystique we have, but we will never lose the Pathfinder spirit around locations which, be Mustang, which is even further to Bhutan, going, trying to get into South America, into some of the really incredible remote areas to, again, open a country up or open a particular area.
Excellent. Okay. We are at the time for Q&A, I believe. We have some questions. Other than raising huge amounts of money to build incredible properties, what makes luxury so hard?
What makes it so hard is to relentlessly pursue that individuality, that customization, that experiential piece. I think you have, on that level, you really have very little room to not deliver without mistakes, correct? Okay. I think also the creativity, you have to perpetually innovate.
So speaking of that, that sort of answers or talks to this next question: how is luxury experiential design being redefined? And at Amangiri, you mentioned that you're developing a series of sort of outdoor safari tents to complement the existing structure. Can you talk a little bit about the motivation behind that, which I think is talking to how this is evolving experiential design?
Yeah, I think, again, if you look at the target customer and between families, multi-generational, some of our hotels may not, in this particular case, cater to that segment. So what are you going to do, correct? You're not going to just not take them. So with the owners there, again, an owner who has the appetite to grow with us and develop a very successful property, we decided to create a little, safari-like, as you call it, a tent. It will be, by the time we're done, about 15 tents. But again, that not tents like you go and do.
Sure.
That tents 2 bedrooms with their own swimming pool, their own pantries, they're all serviced. But it just shows you to keep the product alive. You need to go and to take those risks.
Okay. The next question here I like. I mean, there's no word that's been misused and abused and bandied around like experience.
Yeah.
How do you define experiential? What sets Aman apart from other luxury brands? I think we've spoken to that a little bit. Do you like that question?
I like the question.
How do you define experiential? Let's talk about that.
Is that the question? Well, I think the experiential piece really comes that you are in a location which is really intriguing with us. I think if you look at the example of Bhutan, correct? Where you have monks giving you meditation, where you have a full integration of the community you operate in, who help you to create this experience, and it has to be in context to the culture, the heritage, or the landscape you operate in. So that I think experiential always means that there has to be some sort of an emotional connection to the context you do
The
this.
community.
Yeah, the community, correct? Okay. But I think we're fully integrated. So that's what I say, when you go and do the Pursuit of Happiness week in Bhutan, you will not, you will actually have monks coming to you and teach you how to breathe properly, or to, so it brings this entire experiential piece to another level. Correct?
So, and that goes back to what we originally said to a degree. The experience is now, there's more intention on it being transformational, and having more of some kind of, shift in who you are, how you are evolving in that destination based on the programming.
Yeah,
like,
in this particular case.
Like you have the Meaning of Life week, and you have the Pursuit of Happiness week. So maybe the shift here is, and how you define experiential is just that there is a change in the person as they go through this experience to a degree.
So transformational experiences, yes. This is, I always thought that's what it represents to me, that when you go and visit one of our hotels, that when you leave, you carry something with you. There's a bond to the relationship, but to the destination, but also for you, maybe it makes you more aware that you should focus on the family or your health, or get involved in some sort of a corporate social responsibility context and stuff like that. So it does trigger a certain transformational piece.
Okay. That's where you get all those Aman junkies from. All right, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Ron. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure.